Welcome to another episode of Money Majlis Extra, where I dabble in topics outside my areas of professional expertise. Topics that do not relate to banking, finance, marketing, or technology. In fact, far from it. These are topics that fuel my personal interests: books, movies, art, culture, food, drink, and travel. Today, I'm in Mumbai, India, to interview an author who spent the first 14 years of his professional life as a banker. That's right, as a banker and a finance executive. Today, he is the fastest selling author in Indian publishing history. But first, let me acknowledge my sponsors.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by MasterCard.
Money Majlis is sponsored by Weo Bank. Fuel your ambitions with banking designed to power your success. Discover more at weo.io.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by Aqua Now, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aquanow.com.
Hello again from Mumbai, India. I'm here to meet the celebrated author Amish Tripathi, who is also a broadcaster and a former banker and a former diplomat. Amish is indeed the fastest selling author in Indian publishing history. He has written 11 books, both fiction and non-fiction, in the past 14 years. His books have sold over 7 million copies and have been translated into 20 Indian and international languages. Forbes India has regularly ranked Amish Tripathi among the top 100 most influential celebrities in India. He has received many awards over his career, the most recent being the prestigious Dwarka Prasad Agarwal Award at the Jaipur Literature Festival in 2024. As a broadcaster, Amish has hosted a number of successful TV shows. He has recently launched a podcast called Immortal India with Amish, which is streaming now on multiple channels. In his diplomatic role, Amish worked as the Minister, Culture and Education at the Indian High Commission to the UK and the Director of the Nehru Centre in London. Amish is an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, which is my alma mater as well. He worked for 14 years in senior roles in the financial services industry before turning to writing. I'm delighted to be in Mumbai today with the famous Amish Tripathi in his office recording this Money Majlis Extra episode. Amish, let me just get into your career straight away. You are a mathematics graduate and an MBA from IIM. You worked in banking and insurance for 14 years, including a few years with my ex-bank, Standard Chartered. And then, wow, you became a full-time author with the publication of your wildly popular Shiva trilogy. Amish, how did you decide to take a leap of faith, literally, and venture into becoming an author? Any lessons from your earlier days in the financial services industry that you brought into writing?
Yeah, you're right. I did go to IIM and I went to the best IIM there is, which is IIM Calcutta.
Wonderful. Yes, I agree. Yes.
And I worked in financial services for 14 years.
Mhm.
How did I get into writing? An idea struck me around 2004, 2005.
Yep.
And I wrote my first two books along with my job.
Mhm.
I resigned only with my second book, that was 2011.
Yep.
Um, so a few things here, the way I see it. Creativity is a different part of the brain.
Mhm.
If you're doing a job, particularly a banking job.
You mean the right side of the brain?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. if particularly a banking job, frankly, bankers should not be too creative. If they are, then they create the 2008 financial
Correct.
crisis. Bankers should be driven by the left brain. They should be boring. As the RBI Governor Y.V. Reddy used to say, you guys should be boring.
Yeah, I
If
might
you,
have a difference of point of view on that, but let's carry on.
Anyway, the idea struck me, and I was actually just doing it for myself, man. I didn't know where it would go, right?
So you wrote a manuscript outside work hours at home.
Outside work hours at home. I used to write on the backseat of my car, actually. Mumbai
Wow.
has this wonderful concept called the traffic jam.
Yeah.
I used to an hour and a half every each
And
way.
write as in pen and paper, right?
No, laptop.
Type, laptop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I used to type in.
Hmm.
And I was writing for myself, and I was thoroughly enjoying it. And I think that's the entire point of something creative. You're not doing it for any purpose.
Yeah.
You're doing it to give meaning to your life. Right? You're not doing it to earn money. If money comes, great. If it doesn't come, no, it doesn't matter. Because that's not the primary reason. If your primary reason is to earn money, remain a banker. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky I make money out of my creative work. The reality is most people actually don't make money.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that sense.
Mm.
I wrote my books for myself, my first two books, where my MBA and financial services job helped.
Yeah.
In the following. My first book was rejected by every publisher it was sent to, Models of Melua, because for various reasons.
That's a book one for the Shiva
Book one of
trilogy?
the Shiva trilogy.
Yeah.
I stopped counting at 20 rejections.
God.
Most of and every single publisher I sent it to rejected it. They said it's a guaranteed flop because it's too long. Bestsellers have to be shorter. It's too intense. You're going into all these Gyan sessions, quoting Vedas, quoting
Yeah.
Puranas. One publisher actually told me that if you want to appeal to the youth, I kid you not, he actually said you have to dumb it down.
Uh-huh.
I kid you not. And I thought it's a ridiculous way to look at your customers, but okay. But finally, I self-published. So where did my banking job help? I was earning enough that I could actually invest something. And,
This was Amazon or some other publisher?
No, I actually got it this 2010. So remember,
Okay.
Amazon
Yeah.
still wasn't here.
Self-published later.
Flipkart was there, but online wasn't as big in those days, right? So I actually got it printed and distributed physically
How many
at
copies?
bookstores, 5,000
Just curious.
copies,
5,000 copies.
which sold out in the first 3 weeks itself. It hit the
Really?
bestseller charts in the first week.
So you reprinted additional copies after that?
Yeah. And within some 2-3 months, it had already sold some 40,000 copies, which had made it already among the biggest hits of the year that year, self-published.
Amazing.
Then many other publishers who rejected it came back to bid for it, which is the second place where my banking job helped. I knew how to negotiate my contracts.
Correct.
Most creative people, even good ones, sadly, they don't make enough money because they always have someone who exploits them. Often, it's a sad truth because they don't know how to do they don't know how to do business. They know how to do creative. Right?
Correct.
My banking job helped me in that. And even those who know how to do business, usually their first contract is a terrible contract because they're desperate at that point in time to get their book published or to get their music out. And they sign a very bad deal. But I had actually self-published. It was already a hit.
So you could negotiate a better deal for yourself.
Exactly. When the publisher,
But
it was a
Amish,
blessing in disguise.
why is it that every successful author, including yourself, J.K. Rowling, gets rejected by publishers multiple times before they ever publish a book? It's a predictor of success, is it?
The exception doesn't prove the rule in this case because again 99.9% of the people who self-publish actually don't become hits. I don't judge publishers for this. Picking which book will succeed is among the hardest jobs there are because look, they are actually putting their money where their mouth is. For me, it's just a creative expression. For them, they're actually investing their money. And the reality is readers are unpredictable. Viewers are unpredictable. Till 2010, books, at least in the English language, based on our Puranas, our Itihasas, our mythology, weren't succeeding. The books that were succeeding were campus romance novels or some office politics novels. So fair enough for a publisher to think, the book is too long. Okay, maybe a fast-paced story, but it has too many Gyan sessions. It's on a religious subject. The kids aren't really interested in that, right? So it had, I wouldn't blame them for saying this can't succeed, right? And maybe that's a point of self-publishing, that at least you as an author, give yourself a chance.
Mhm.
If it doesn't work, great, but what you'll regret most is if you didn't
Never
even give
wrote
yourself a
anything.
chance.
Correct, correct.
Right.
And like you said, it's not just for commercial success, also for your personal satisfaction, right?
Exactly.
Amish, that brings me to my second question, which is your initial books, the Shiva trilogy, the Ramchandra series, are all fictional narratives inspired by mythology and history,
Hmm.
and primarily Indian mythology, Indian history. What made you take up this genre? What inspired you take up this specific genre as opposed to anything else?
So look, I wasn't trying to be an author.
Mhm.
Wasn't a part of my my dreams when I was growing up. I had various dreams. I'll be an industrialist. I'll be a
This
I'll be
wasn't
a
one of them.
scientist. Being an author wasn't one of them. Being a banker also wasn't one of them. Frankly, life is, I guess life is what happens to you when you're planning other things. I was always a voracious reader. In our
Okay.
family, everyone reads a lot.
Hmm.
For me, that's I think, one of the first rules in life. You want to be a good writer, first you have to be a good reader.
Hmm.
And I read maybe 5, 6 books per month. I've been reading at that pace for decades.
Uh-huh.
But I never thought I'll be a writer, right? So it's not that I was searching for a subject or thinking on what would work or building relationships with publishers. I was just reading.
Mhm.
An idea struck me. And it's kind of natural that ideas will strike you in an area where you have knowledge.
Correct.
I grew up in a deeply religious family. I come from a Pandit family, actually.
Mhm.
My grandfather was a Pandit at Vishwanath Ji
Okay.
in Varanasi.
Mm.
He used to teach at Banaras Hindu University, maths and physics.
Okay.
My grandmother on my mother's side was also a teacher. So we had an atmosphere of, if you can call it that, Saraswati Vandana in
Okay.
our
Lot of reading,
lot
lot
of
of
reading,
discussion.
lot of discussions.
Mm.
We grew up deeply immersed in our traditions, in our philosophies, in our scriptures. So school was convent educated. My
Yeah.
parents were educated in the Hindi medium, actually. Our generation was the first generation to be educated in English.
Mhm.
And so in a way we got the best of both worlds because we were exposed to the West and Western education in school, but home was Bharat
Okay.
completely,
Very much Indianness.
very much.
Mm.
So my knowledge was there, so it's kind of obvious and ideas would emerge in that area. So uh, I think it's kind of natural. It wasn't planned, it was just natural.
But Amish, do you bring in your own interpretation of mythological events and situations? Uh, has that landed you in some kind of controversy sometimes that no, that's not what Shiva was like. It's supposed to be
Mm.
like this.
Mm.
Have you had readers objecting to your interpretation?
So you've read my books. We've
Yeah.
known each other for a few years.
Yeah.
You've Google, and if you Google me also, you won't find any controversy on me,
Mm.
right?
How do you manage
Okay.
that?
That's the thing. I don't think it's something special in me or my books. I think it's something special in India.
Mhm.
I don't think Indians have a problem with different interpretations.
Mm.
I think they have a problem if you do a disrespectful interpretation,
Okay.
which is fair.
Which is fair.
You know, it's because we're not a religion of one book.
Mm.
We're a religion of an entire library.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you actually go through our scriptures, you'll find different interpretations of the same story in different scriptures itself.
Mm.
Even in our rituals.
Yeah.
In the north, and a very simple example, in the north, Lord Karthik is a bachelor, North India.
Yeah.
South India, Lord Karthik is married.
Mm.
He has 2 wives. You're from Bengal, so you'd probably think Lord Karthik is a bachelor.
Bachelor,
But
correct.
you go to Tamil Nadu, you can see his murtis with 2 wives.
This is a consort.
It's a very small example, but it
Mm.
shows the diversity of
Yeah. Yeah.
thoughts.
Mm.
So almost intuitively, Indians grow up
Mhm.
respecting multiple truths.
Yeah.
To me, that's the true nature of liberalism.
Mm.
Many Western liberals, I believe, are not genuinely liberal
Mhm.
because genuinely liberal people don't force their views on others.
Correct.
I remember I'd had an argument with a Western liberal once who'd actually was trying to defend the invasions of Iraq and Libya, that, oh, we were trying to improve them. Who the hell told you to go and improve them?
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
You killed a few million people out there. You actually think you're liberal,
Mm.
right? So liberalism is essentially respect for different truths,
Correct.
which most Indians get intuitively.
Correct.
And all I'm doing is having a different interpretation. And I think anyone who reads my books,
Mhm.
even if they don't like them, I think
Yeah.
the respect within them is obvious. Because I genuinely worship the gods I write on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which is why there's no controversy.
But talking of multiple truths, Amish, is there a plan for you to work on stories that are centered on other religious systems? Is that something you'll do at some point?
Yeah. In fact, actually, in some of our non-fiction books,
Yeah.
in some of my non-fiction books, which I've written with my sister, Bhavna,
Yeah.
we've actually discussed already Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, Southeast Asian mythology, Central American,
Mhm.
Celtic. And I find a lot of interesting, I won't say similarities, but similar rhythms
Mhm.
between Indian traditions
Mm.
and many of these Zoroastrian traditions. The only difference is that the Indian tradition is still a living tradition.
Mm.
Those other traditions are sadly dead.
Mm.
So yes, I have some story ideas in that space, fiction story ideas as well in that space. My biggest problem is I have too many story ideas and only one life. So
Any
I
of
need
those
to
ideas, any of those ideas are on, say, science fiction or crime thriller or romantic fiction? Will Amish Tripathi ever deviate from what you do, which is
why the hell
mythology?
not? You know, and in
Yeah.
fact, actually, I was in London for 4.5 years,
Uh-huh.
and I got this idea in London,
Yeah.
which is a story set in the modern day,
Mm-hmm.
which is based in London and India.
Uh-huh.
And it has elements of time travel and gaming. And I'm trying to impress my son Neil with that story
Okay.
because Neil tells me, Dad, in the list of authors, you're a very close second. He has someone else who's a favorite. Which it doesn't matter if millions read or don't read my books. For my son, I should be
Of
number
course,
one.
of course.
So
How
he
soon is that?
likes this, fantasy, and he
Yeah.
says, Dad, your books are all about, plausibility. It's doesn't go into fantasy. I want fantasy. So
Mm.
this is set in the modern day, but fantasy.
And when is that coming?
I have to start writing it. I have a
You have the
book
idea.
idea. I have the idea. I will start hopefully in a few years.
So tell me, Amish, when you talk about writing, how long does it typically take you to write a book from start to finish?
On average, it takes me a year and a half between books. I've been at this for 14 years. I've got 11 books out.
And you write one book at a time, or can it be two books at the same
It
time?
could be multiple because some books I write with my writer's center,
Uh-huh.
where I work with a writer. Could be my sister. Could be
Yeah.
my non-fiction books are with my sister. There's a non-fiction book I've written just by myself as well, Immortal
Yeah.
India.
Yeah.
But
I like the book
Um,
Dharma with your sister.
oh,
You wrote
thank
an
you.
amazing book.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
some fiction books with writers center as well with other writers. So
Mm.
Suhail Dev, for example, there's another book coming out soon in that space.
Mm.
So yeah, so normally I might have two books running simultaneously.
Amazing. So you're right.
Bringing my corporate
multitasking.
learnings into it.
Multitasking. I'm sure son will be proud of that. So you divide your right brain into two halves, and one half work on project one and one half project two. But Amish, you have recently ventured into the world of documentaries and films
Mm.
with works such as Ram Janmabhoomi, The Return of a Splendid Son,
Mm.
and Immortal India with the Amish podcast series, right? How do you see the impact of audiovisuals versus the written word? Is this medium of audiovisual, which we are in at the moment, a podcast, is it better suited for today's times?
I think a good communicator should be medium agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the world of media is such that technologies change.
Mm-hmm.
There are some of us who see books as traditional and old world. But there was a time when the printed book was considered a new technology which is destroying the world. Because
Yeah.
remember, before that, books used to be written actually by hand and they were illustrated books.
Mm.
I'm talking about pre the Gutenberg press,
Yeah.
600 years ago.
Yeah.
And those were beautiful books.
Mm.
But since each copy had to be written by hand, there were very few books. It
Correct.
was only an elite pursuit.
Correct.
The masses had to listen to kathakars, as used to happen in India, or
Yeah.
bards and
Yeah.
in the West.
Oral.
Exactly, oral
traditional books.
storytelling.
Correct.
What I see happening with audiovisual is actually a new media. right?
Mm.
Um, OTT series, I mean, like a Netflix, Amazon series.
Correct.
Salman Rushdie had called it the novel of the new age,
Mhm.
right? Because if you think about it, each episode is like a chapter. Each season is actually like a book. You have to have a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter, right? In a book, and
Correct.
massive
Correct.
cliffhanger at
Correct.
the end of a book. If it's a series, like many of my books are, so that they pick up the next book, which is exactly like how OTT series is written.
Hmm.
A podcast is essentially a non-fiction book in an audio medium or an audio-visual medium.
Correct.
And if you're a creator,
Hmm.
if you're a communicator, if you're a storyteller, um, I think you should be adaptable to all media,
Hmm.
so that you can get your message out. And the way I see it, all communicators and storytellers today, particularly if you're successful,
Hmm.
if you're a successful author,
Yep.
you're not competing with other authors, because actually you're not competing for more money in the book publishing trade. In India, there are only two authors who sell in the millions,
Mhm.
Chetan and me, a few authors who sell in the hundreds and thousands. So it's not that you're competing with other authors. You're
Hmm.
actually competing also with an OTT series.
Correct.
You're competing with a visit to the mall.
Yep.
You're competing with the Instagram, thread of
You're competing
essentially.
for the attention and time
Exactly.
of your
You're not
prospective.
competing for the guy's
Yeah. Yeah.
just his
Yeah.
money. You're actually competing for the viewer's time,
Correct.
which means your competition is also that Instagram reel. Your competition is also a visit to the mall. Your competition is
Yeah.
also a movie. So, which means that you actually need to be available in as much medium, and then your quality of thinking and communication has to be so high that a viewer or reader or a listener is willing to give you their most precious commodity,
So,
which is their attention and time.
talking of viewers, when can we expect the Shiva trilogy to be on Netflix or Amazon? Is that coming?
Yeah, we're working. I mean, we're working on that. There were two deals that happened earlier. Regrettably, it didn't work out. But like I said, banking background, so the deals were well negotiated.
Okay.
The rights are back with me.
Hmm.
We are working on another deal right now with people in Hollywood. Let's see if that works out.
Oh, it's a
But
Hollywood
yeah,
series.
yeah.
Wow.
Look, one of the biggest challenges in my book series is they're written on a scale where the the budgets required to make it are so high that just the
Yeah.
Indian market doesn't end up justifying, and that was perhaps one of the problems why it couldn't get made.
Hmm.
Because a if it's a movie, it can't be just one movie. It has to be a series, and each movie will be so expensive it becomes too big a bet for anyone.
Hmm.
And if it's a series, it requires a budget per episode, which uh, the Indian market simply doesn't justify. India can be one of the key markets for it, but can't be
Yeah.
the only market.
Hmm.
If you can convert the story into a global market, then you might have the budget.
I mean, the
Seeing
Indian
that as the
diaspora,
opportunity, let's see if it. And
the
the
Indian
Indian
diaspora
diaspora
is
is
huge, right?
huge.
So,
The Indian diaspora, about 25 million people, but they have a wealth base which is higher than India's GDP.
mhm.
And unlike many other diasporas which have lost the connection to the mother culture, the Indian diaspora is still very deeply connected
Sometimes more connected than people in
than
India.
Indians in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a wonderful, it's almost a dichotomy. It's a wonderful thing that the Indians have figured out that they are very good citizens in the country that they're in.
Yeah.
I've heard this term when I lived in the West, in the UK. The Indians are almost called the model minority because crime rate is low, education rates are high, among the highest earning. They pay their taxes. They don't cause trouble.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect model minority, but still deeply connected to the mother culture.
Hmm.
And it sounds like it's contradictory, but the Indians have managed to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. Amish, your latest venture, I believe, is the Age of Bharat, a high-budget fantasy video game planned to be rolled out in 2026. Now, obviously, a great initiative to fill a gap in gaming for games with the Indic heritage. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
You know, I was approached for this by this French British company, and the main producer for this, Nordine, is actually he used to work in Ubisoft, which is one of the biggest gaming companies there is.
Yep.
He is launched among the biggest games in the world, and I'm talking about a AAA proper video game, not a mobile phone game, a proper PlayStation game.
Mm.
And they have a vision of making such a game for India.
Mm.
And I think the time has come. I'm sure you're aware of the Chinese game that has just taken off and is, in a way, changing the gaming world.
Mm.
Uh, and India can be just like that because our market is big enough to end up justifying as a base for a game. And secondly, it is also a culture that is different enough that may appeal to gamers, and I'm talking about non-Indian gamers across the world.
Yep.
So I thought it's a brilliant idea. And I've joined into the team. The game is going to be based on the Ramayana.
Okay.
But obviously, a character is not going to play Lord Ram or something. It's the age of
Got it.
Ramayana. So
Got it.
Lord Ram and Ravan's battle is going to take place.
Hmm.
But you are one of the people living in that time. You're a player.
Mm.
Then what game can you play?
Correct.
That's
So is it
that's what we are setting up.
is it challenging you in imagination in a different way than writing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm utterly loving it.
Uh-huh.
And again, one of the key reasons to do it was my son.
Son, I was
Neil.
going to say your son will be proud of you, right?
Because look, I'm 50 years old, man. So I had no idea games are so big. I know it sounds bizarre, but I had no idea games are so big.
A lot of us don't. Yeah.
So, and I don't know how many of your listeners are aware, video games are bigger than movies, music, books, and performances combined.
Put together, yes.
It's
yes.
that big. It's
Yeah,
a
it's amazing.
massive industry.
Mm.
And I told my son, I've been approached for this. I don't have the time. I'm really busy. I'm not so sure. Dad, you have to do this. You have to do this.
But
I said, okay.
Amish, it's a great initiative because when I grew up, for example, a lot of the mythology I read was initially in forms of comic books.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Ramayana in comics, the Lord Krishna in comics, etc. If you can interest youngsters, whether India or elsewhere, to learn their mythology or history through games,
Absolutely.
that's amazing. The involvement is amazing, right? That you can get. So I'm assuming that you start with Ramayana, then move to Mahabharata, and move to
Mm.
other epics
Yeah,
in the
so-
future, right?
But this one is actually based on the Ramayana. It's a story that makes for, I think, for a great gaming experience.
Mm.
Heroism, dharma, the ability to fight for what is right. It makes for a great gaming experience.
Yeah.
I've started playing a few games, spending.
Is your son helping you with that?
Huh?
Is your son helping
Of course
you
he
with
is,
that?
because I had no idea what I was doing. I'd bought a PlayStation for him, and I would keep getting and I would see him play, and I would enjoy watching him enjoy himself.
Mm.
But I never really got into it. I never really understood it.
Mm.
But now I'm trying to play to get into it a bit, so that I can write better.
Amazing. No, imagine with augmented reality and artificial, intelligence, all of that,
I-
what you can create as an environment for a game, which is
It's-
amazing.
It's
correct?
amazing, and like I said, this is actually a AAA game.
Mhm.
So this will be top end with the budgets at that level, with with graphics, with world building, which is as good as a Hollywood movie actually.
Amazing. So you're doing a documentary, you're working possibly on a Netflix or Amazon series, you're working on gaming. What's the next adventure for Amish the author? I mean,
I-
you talked about time travel fiction as well, right?
Yeah,
Is that also coming soon?
It sounds like I can't make up my mind.
It sounds like you're a modern author who's looking at every single medium possible to promote your work.
Suvo, what I love most about my life
Mm-hmm.
is, and many of these ideas actually people approach me, like the
Mhm.
gaming thing, right?
Yeah.
What I love most about my life is I get to do things I love doing.
Hmm.
I get to keep exploring different media, different outlets, which actually kind of just fires up your mind.
Yeah.
Like one of the things on neurology is you need to fire up different neurons, keeps
Yeah.
your brain healthy.
Correct.
I had the opportunity of being an Indian government diplomat, right, which was a completely different world.
When you were cultural
And
attaché
when I was
in London.
I was Minister Culture and Education at the Indian High Commission
How was
in the
that
UK.
experience?
No, the point I was making was actually I get to do all this, which makes my life so wonderful and rich, and
Uh-huh.
I actually get paid for it. It's a blessing, man.
But do you find the regular job like that, or what you did earlier, banking, very boring compared to the excitement you can create in your books, in your games, in your movies?
I think one of the things I learned in life is you should put yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's how you grow. It's like muscles only grow against resistance, right?
Correct.
When I was in the government job, and I was, I'd been hired on contract. The Indian government had this, just like how the US government has. People from the private sector can come in on short contracts, work, and then leave. The
Yeah.
entire idea is new blood comes in, new ideas come in.
Correct.
It was a 3-year contract, but then they gave me an extension, and I ended up serving nearly 4.5 years. Um, it's not just that it was different from my creative work. It was different from my private sector work as well, because government work is completely different. It's a different world, right?
Mm.
Uh, and in that sense, you grow different parts of your brain. You realize the challenges of working in a government role. It's not so easy. And Indians, we like to criticize our government. Even Indians abroad, we like to criticize the embassies.
Yep.
And it's who we are. But we also realize, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I also realize when I get on the other side, we're a very difficult people to manage. Okay? Uh, uh, and you learn so much about what government management is. It's very different from private sector management. And that, I think, actually it makes my writing also richer. It makes life richer in a way. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
No, you are.
essentially
But
you go
yeah,
into different experiences.
of course. But tell me, having worked in the government, did you at that point wish that government servants, government employees had more imagination like you? Are they too constrained in their thinking?
Okay, a few things. One, what is the reward punishment system in the government and in the bureaucracy? The way it is in India, the entire batch gets promoted at the same time. The entire batch is at the same salary level.
Even the batch of graduates from
of IAS or IFS.
from one of the diplomatic services. Yeah,
And even the non-service government employees,
correct.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
the year of joining that matters.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you don't get fired for not doing your job, right? You don't get a bonus for actually doing your job or
Correct.
doing something innovative. But in trying to do something innovative, if you make a mistake, you can get investigated by the vigilance office, maybe even 15 years later when you've forgotten everything.
Yeah.
And in India, the process is the punishment. It'll be a 20-year court case. You might be declared innocent after that, but the process is the
So there's
punishment.
not an incentive to
In
break
this
out of the
situation,
rules. Yeah,
what is a rational thing that a smart person will do? Yeah, just be careful,
correct.
right? Don't do too much. And remember, in any organization, there'll always be 5% who overperform. There'll always be 5% who don't do anything, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
The real trick is to get the 90% in the middle to work, right? The private sector is able to do that because A, it tolerates mistakes, B, it incentivizes performance,
Correct.
and it disincentivizes non-performance. It'll fire you. In the government, none of these three are available. It does not tolerate mistakes. And the only way to avoid mistakes is to do nothing, right? And it does not incentivize performance, does not disincentivize non-performance. Then you'll get the system that you get. It's you can't blame the bureaucrats for it.
So then, Amish,
Um,
what's the hope for the public sector then? If that's the public sector in most countries, are you saying we can never expect anything imaginative from the public sector?
My reading, because there was, when I'd initially joined, I used to keep thinking about how can we get the government more efficient. And I'd actually made some notes. I was still a private sector guy,
Yeah,
right?
that
And I
mindset.
would, and I would bang my hand on the table. Why can't we do this? And okay. But the situation also is, the government, the scale is so high. Is that if you open the space that's there in the private sector, the opportunity for misuse is also high.
Also a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to control that. It's a different thing if you're running a small city state like Singapore.
Yeah.
Singapore actually is at least my read, it's more a corporation than a country. It runs like a corporation,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But a country of 1.4 billion people cannot be run that way, right? You want the government to be stable, and you want the government to do a few things which no one else can do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
My read, if I've come to it this far a time, all right, maybe it is better if the bureaucrats have some incentive to do work,
Yeah.
but don't try and make it like the private sector. You'll create disaster, right? And the state should become like a Chanakyan state, which is minimal, does a few things very well. Only the state can provide external security. Only the state can provide law and order. Only the
Yeah.
state can provide contract enforcement. Only the state can provide justice system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do only this. Leave the rest to society. What we have built over the last 75, 80 years is an Ashokan state, where the state tries to get involved in every damn thing. And it can't do that. Leave it to society. That is probably better than trying to get our bureaucrats to work like the private sector. We think it'll be so great on the plus side. It might be very extreme on the
Negative
minus side as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well said. Well said, Amish. Just changing tack from there, I have to ask you the mandatory question on AI, right? I mean, Gen AI is generating a lot of business, non-fiction writing already. It's also kind of providing, writers and authors a lot of support in providing scaffolding, proof checking, etc., and can be a useful assistant to a writer's lonely world. How do you see this developing? Is it, for you, in your mind, a threat or opportunity for authors?
I think, to be honest, if anyone says they understand AI, I suspect they're lying.
Okay.
What the impact will be, it's difficult to predict at this point of time. But at this point of time, what one has seen, it's essentially large language models. It just predicts the next word.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In simple terms, right? Which in effect is a game of probability, which in effect means it's going by past patterns. Right? Now, if your writing does not break past patterns, right? Then maybe AI can be very helpful for you. Right?
So
Because
can you
it
write
can,
an epilogue? Can I write an epilogue
Yeah.
for the Shiva
So,
trilogy myself with AI? I will read 3
that'll be-
books.
yeah,
I
that'll
can
be-
create a 4th book without your involvement.
I suspect not, because I actually tried it.
You tried it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as an experiment, because someone had told me, oh God, you'll be out of business.
Yeah.
And what it wrote, I told it to write 5,000 words. It was crap.
Really? Okay.
And I said, thank God. Okay, I still
Mm.
have a job. My read at this point of time is AI cannot think what has not been thought before. Right? It can follow patterns of what has been thought before. That's both an opportunity and a challenge for human beings, right?
Yeah.
Because if your mind is lazy and you're only doing what has been thought before, yeah, then you're in trouble, right? But if you actually use your mind on what it was designed for, which is come up with thoughts which have not been thought before, right? Then it's very difficult for an AI to replicate that. Now, what is the way to do that? At least what used to come from the ancient Indian tradition is there's no logical step-by-step process for out-of-the-box creativity. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's a bit like you have to keep exercising that part of the brain, the right brain, and then it just delivers a miracle. Okay. What does that mean? Keep trying to do new things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exercise your brain in a creative way. Right? Don't get stuck in a rut where you're doing the same thing again and again. Right?
Correct.
You can't be doing fresh creative stuff all the time. Your brain will get tired. Right? But that is actually what gives you a competitive advantage over AI. So, for example, I would think, or at least so I've been told, that my books were, because they had a completely creative and different interpretation, which had not been done before. It wasn't just a retelling. I reinterpreted.
Yeah.
That was something different. Something AI couldn't have done. But if I keep doing only this for the rest of my life, then I become repetitive. And you see that with many creative guys.
Yeah.
They have a purple patch for 5, 10, and it's happened very often. And then suddenly it just goes because they're doing the same thing again and again. Every Devanand movie till a particular time, till the mid 70s, I loved. And post the mid 70s, it was like I'm watching the same movie again and again, and then you stop liking it. Right? Like he was kind of repeating himself, making almost a caricature of himself. Maybe that's why I'm so excited about that thing set in the story set in the modern day with gaming and time travel. It'll be something completely different.
So you're
I could-
reinventing yourself in different ways.
And the thing with something creative, you could crash and burn. It could be a complete flop.
Yeah. Where people are used to a certain genre from Amish Tripathi.
But that's the entire point of creativity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could either deliver something completely on the plus side or completely on the minus side, but you have to keep doing it. That's what gives you an advantage over AI.
But Amish, the danger with that is your fan base, your readers expect a certain type of book from Amish Tripathi. The same way they expect a certain kind of book from Devanand or Tom Cruise or whoever. Now, maybe if Tom Cruise does a romantic comedy, it might not fly because that's not how you see Tom Cruise, the action hero. I'm used to Amish Tripathi writing about mythological characters. Suddenly, is there a danger if you did something totally different, your fans don't accept you? Is that a worry that sometimes worries you?
Look, I've delivered 11 books
Mhm.
in this genre. Most
Yeah.
of my books.
Yeah.
Actually, all my books are in
Yeah.
the history, legend, fiction space.
Correct.
But let me give you an example on the movie side, because I don't know if in India many examples of authors who've done different genres. But there were actors and filmmakers who stuck to just one thing,
Mm.
and they did not last 60, 70 years.
Mm.
I'll tell you one actor who's been at the top for 55, 60 years now, Amitabh Bachchan.
Mhm.
He is, if you see his journey, every decade actually he's reinvented himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And every decade a new generation falls in love with him, and the old generation continues to love him. Right? Was that a risk he was taking? Of course he was. Right? And is success guaranteed? Of course not. But fun is guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the only time when he started failing was actually when he wasn't reinventing himself. If you remember that in the middle he had done that, what are those movies? Yeah. Rakhwala and God, no,
Yeah,
I'm forgetting the name.
Yeah. Some forgettable movies.
Really before Mohabbatein.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was trying to do things which he'd done in the 70s. Right? And Mohabbatein had a certain thing. Then he actually has reinvented himself completely. Okay, and he keeps on doing that, right? Being successful for 10, 15 years doing the same thing is perhaps easy. Being successful for 50 years doing the exact same thing again and again is actually not easy. Tom Cruise as well, if you think about it, actually keeps on doing different things. He's done Jerry Maguire, which was very different.
Yeah.
He's done Love Boy movies, which is very different. He's done action movies, which are very different. Right?
Yeah.
We discover, it's only in the recent past that we've discovered, and at least I didn't know, I don't know if Americans do, he does all his stunts himself, and I was
Yeah,
blown away.
yeah.
And now those videos have started coming out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a man. And
Yeah.
he's freaking 60 years old, man.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that, and especially in this age of social media, right? You can't be a mysterious creative person, a mysterious artist who comes out only once every 2 years. Okay. Then you can actually maybe stick to the same thing. But if and it's very difficult to be mysterious and anonymous. Someone's photographing you somewhere. Someone's,
Yeah.
right? Then, well, familiarity breeds contempt. So maybe the need to reinvent is that much more. And like I said, the key thing to understand that you have to accept, success is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
If an artist has this thing that I will jump only when there's a safety net, you will never jump. Okay.
Interesting.
And that's why you get stuck in a rut.
Mm.
Okay. You have to jump. And sometimes you will fail. That's okay. Jump.
But Amish, do you ever get writer's block? You've been writing for so many years. Does it happen to you, or just something that people think about writers?
except for one phase,
Mm.
I never had writer's block. It's like it's on tap. I just there was this one phase in 2018, perhaps the worst phase in my life. Uh, uh, my family and I, we passed through a very difficult 6, 7, 8 years. Our careers have all been good, all of us.
Mm.
Every year is usually better than the previous year. But what truly matters for us is actually our personal life. We're a very
Yeah.
close knit family.
Yeah.
We lost people in our family, and in fact, one after the other,
Before
and
time.
very tragically.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Mm.
My late brother-in-law was like a father to me. My late father. Uh, many things happened, and it was my mother was in depression. My sister, because of what she'd
Yeah.
seen, she was she was having autoimmune disorder, various, because she really loved her husband.
Mm.
My first marriage broke down at that time. It was a horrible phase.
Mm.
Um, and particularly when I lost my late brother-in-law,
Mm.
that period for a few months, uh, because my only refuge used to be writing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you stop writing then?
I tried, and
Okay.
nothing was coming.
Okay.
For a few months, for 2, 3 months, and I actually thought, how much worse can life get? I mean,
Mm.
this is my only refuge.
Mm.
Uh, and even this has been stopped, and how much more does God want to punish me?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, mm, and
You recovered slowly?
it strangely, it wasn't actually slowly, it was very sudden. There was this uh, my twin brother Ashish and I, we were watching TV, and you know how men are. I guess we handle grief differently from women.
Mm-hmm.
Women maybe like to talk. Men like to just bottle it up,
Internalize it, yeah.
and maybe keep it in some dungeon of our heart, and then we get a nice cathartic heart attack sometime, and then it's all
Mm.
over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the way we handle it.
Yeah.
And so Ashish and I, we were sitting and watching TV once, because we didn't want to talk, we didn't want to do anything, and he was just randomly surfing, like what men do when.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was this song that came up, and I just told Ashish, stop, stop, stop. I don't know why I told him to stop. And I heard that, and I Shazammed the song down on my Amazon Music.
Mm-hmm.
And that evening, I went down for a walk to the garden. Normally, I have a playlist
Mm.
while I'm walking or running.
Mm.
Again, this time, I don't know why, I just press play. Now, Amazon Music works is, if you don't select a playlist, it starts with your last song first, and then just goes backwards. And then this song started. Just the first 30 seconds, which is just instrumental,
Uh-huh.
actually.
Uh-huh.
Even now, if I hear that, I start crying. I get deeply emotional. And I was listening to that. I was in the garden, and I just started crying. And for 1 hour, I was walking continuously, listening to those first 30 seconds again and again and
On
again.
loop.
On loop. And I was just crying continuously.
Was it Indian
And
classical
the
music?
next,
Was it Indian classical
no,
music?
it's hardly a Bollywood song,
Bollywood
but
song.
a traditional song. And the next 2, 3 chapters just came in a flood. It
Wow.
was,
This is which book you're writing then?
Ravan,
Okay.
a book that I think has been my fastest selling ever.
Mm.
The
Mm.
book, and um, the chapters which made Ravan into Ravan, when he decided he just wants to burn the entire world down,
Mm-hmm.
because he suffered.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read that book, when he loved someone,
Mm.
and she passed away very tragically.
Mm.
Yeah, those chapters came
Straight away after this.
came in a
episode.
flood, and I went back up and I just started writing. I
Mm.
finished the rest of the book in a month and a half.
So you came back after that to your usual writing
Yeah,
routine.
yeah. Outside of that, no writer's block ever.
Okay. Okay. But Amish, do you believe writers are born or made? It's a very old question, of course. What do you think needs to be done to help develop writers in their formative years, or can it be done at all? to children or young adults? Can parents inculcate a writing habit and groom children as authors, or is that something that doesn't happen?
Look, learning how to write, command over the language. Uh, I'm comfortable with both English and Hindi. You know, my podcast I
Yeah.
do it in Hindi as
Yeah.
well. I have no problem with Hindi.
Yeah.
At home, we speak in Hindi with my parents. Command over the language, ability to communicate your thoughts clearly. This
Mm.
can be learned.
Yeah.
This can be taught.
Yeah.
How to write.
Mm.
But what to write, particularly if you're writing fiction,
Yeah.
I don't think this can be taught. It's a blessing. The way I see it is you should exercise your right brain, which is essentially your creative brain. Left
Yeah.
brain is the logical, rational
Yeah.
brain,
Yeah.
and there's this cult of reason that the entire world has imported from the West.
Yeah.
Our education system is all around the cult of reason.
Correct.
We're only exercising the left brain.
Mm.
And I'm not saying we have to swing like the Americans to the other extreme, where don't exercise the left brain at all, stop mathematics at 8th standard. That's stupid and ridiculous. You have to, these are basics which you must learn. But you have to exercise your right brain as well. And there are techniques that our ancient Gurukul system had, that the schools of mystery around the Mediterranean used to have.
Yeah.
If you exercise the right brain, creativity will come out.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is where it'll come out, you don't know. It could come out in painting, come out in fine arts, could come out in writing, could come out in stories, but something will come out because everyone has something creative. It may not necessarily be writing. It is something, right? And when you're doing something creative, it's not to become famous or to earn money. It is to actually keep your brain balanced, right? Which is why you must keep exercising your right brain. So that's what I would advise to parents.
And this is not genetic, right? I mean, you see musicians, sons or daughters becoming musicians. Do you think your son will become an author one day?
You don't know because
But that's not predictable, is
it's
it?
not. It's not because you don't know where that creativity will go, right? And there are enough and more examples of great actors whose children aren't great actors, great writers whose children aren't great writers, great filmmakers whose children are, and there are enough and more examples. Right?
Yeah.
And if it was all genetic, then a first generation artist would never emerge.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true. Very true.
Yeah. But everyone has something creative. This I do believe in them.
You
And
just
the-
got to discover that.
And the job of the parents has to that do things, just a simple act of playing. Okay. Not competing, just playing. Going out to the park and playing with your friends. Right? That itself is creative.
Yeah.
Where children will get injured, they will do all that is okay. That's what excites the right brain. Right? Reading something different, doing something different every few months. That's what
Yeah.
excites the right brain. Not just watching the same type of movie repeatedly, going to the mall repeatedly. That's not exciting your right brain. And what that does is it actually kind of numbs your brain, right? Keep doing something different which excites the right brain. Essentially, look, even the brain is not exactly, but it's also like a muscle. You have to
Yeah.
exercise it.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Of course. Amish, you're an very avid author and you read a lot. Which books and writing have influenced you the most? And if I must ask you, what is the book on your bedside table right now?
So, I think if one can give a list of just a few books that have influenced you deeply, then you haven't read enough. I read four, like I said, 5-6 books per month. So normally how I answer this question is of the books I've read in the recent past,
Yeah.
which ones am I liking?
Yeah.
There's a book by Vikram Sampath on Tipu Sultan,
Mhm.
which is on my bedside table, which I'm really enjoying right now. There's a book by Willem Dalrymple called The Golden Road,
Yes.
which I'm also reading right now. Brilliant book.
Yeah.
I tend to read also a few books, and I tend to read more non-fiction.
You read multiple books together?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Mostly non-fiction.
mostly non-fiction.
Okay.
There's also a book by Hamish Morjaria called the Muziris manuscript, which I read the original manuscript of. I'm rereading now. Yeah.
Excellent. And my final question, Amish. If you could invite 3 mythological characters for dinner, who will they be?
Hooray.
I'm giving you 3 choices only.
Only, only Lord Shiva. This is an easy answer.
Okay, so Lord Shiva and his two
Lord
other-
Shiva.
and his two
And look,
avatars.
if Lord Shiva comes, then one knows, Goddess Parvati will also come. Lord Ganesh will also come. Lord Kartik will
Oh,
also
God.
come. Nandi ji will also
And that
come.
becomes a big party.
Yeah. Shiv ji ki Bharat. I'll be there.
Wonderful. Amish Tripathi, celebrated author, thinker, now a movie maker and game maker. Thank you very much for your time today, and lovely to talk to you and get some insights into the world of books, the world of mythology, the world of gaming. Thank you for the time today.
Thank you for having me. So thoroughly enjoyed this. Very insightful and good questions.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by MasterCard.
Money Majlis is sponsored by Weo Bank. Fuel your ambitions with banking designed to power your success. Discover more at weo.io.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by Aqua Now, the premier crypto as a service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aquanow.com.
So that was the banker turned author Amish Tripathi talking about his life story. I thought his spirit of reinventing himself every few years is just amazing. Not just an author, he is today a podcaster, a broadcaster, and a video game creator. We look forward to seeing what is next for Amish Tripathi. But before I sign off, I would like to acknowledge the help I received from Shivani Tripathi, his wife, in organizing this interview. The Tripathi couple is the most gracious and hospitable. So thank you. I hope you liked this episode and will share it with your friends and family. Till the next episode, goodbye and ma salama. Stay well and do good.